Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to do a recommendations video, and I'm going to recommend you Possessive hero books or You're Mine books. So basically, they're the same thing. Obviously, a hero who constantly tells the heroine that she's his is going to be possessive, and a possessive hero would 100% say the words, "You are mine." I am filming in a different location right now. Basically, I usually film on the other side of my living room, and now because it's fall and it's gonna be winter, the sun tends to come in and out and in and out. So if you watched my top 10 romances of all time, you can see the struggle of that. So for now, I'm gonna sit here. I am thinking of switching up the bottom two shelves to Sarah J. Maas books and not Harry Potter. As much as I do love Harry Potter, we do not support J.K. Rowling in this household. Anyway, moving on, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about some possessive heroes. I love a possessive hero. I just like a man who knows what he wants. And in this case, he wants his heroine, and he's not shy about that at all. There's no question about it. She doesn't question it. Nobody else questions it. She's his, and he's gonna let her know and everybody else know that that's what's up. And I just like that. Obviously, I mean, yeah. Moving on, we're not talking about my romantic life or lack thereof. There are 4 categories here. I have 3 contemporary romances to talk about, 3 dark romances, 3 fantasy romances, and 1 historical romance. I do have to say, with all of them, I just know that there is a possessive hero in here, and I know that with most of them there is a "you're mine" scene or "she's mine" scene, but some of them I've read years ago, so I don't really remember the exact scene, but just know that with all of them, there is a possessive hero. Let's start with, as usual, the contemporary romances. Let's start with Twisted Games. So I do own this one, but when I film on this side, you can't really see it. So this obviously is the second book in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. And this is a princess bodyguard trope. So basically you follow Bridget, who is a princess, and because her brother abdicated the throne, she's now in line to become queen of like a Genovia type country called Eldora. And her usual bodyguard, who was not that strict, he's now going on paternity leave. So that is a difficult word for me to say, paternity leave. And now she needs a new bodyguard, and she gets assigned Reese, who's a handsome 10-year older man. And she is constantly at odds with him because he's very, very strict. There have been some security concerns lately, so because he's so strict, she gets really isolated and they get closer. Obviously, this is a very forbidden romance because she's a princess, she's gonna be queen, she's supposed to marry somebody of the aristocracy, and he's a bodyguard, and he's not even from Eldora. So yeah, he is deliciously dominant and also very, very possessive. And I believe there is a scene in here where he tells her that she's his, and I just melted. I just love that. Yeah, this is definitely a possessive hero. And it's interesting because he's not, especially, obviously this has an HA, they do end up together, but for the majority of this book, they have to keep it a secret. So it's interesting to see a possessive hero having to keep his love for her a secret. So yeah, amazing. If you've not read this yet for some reason, do yourself a favor and read it because it's amazing. Especially if you love The Princess Diaries 2, you're for sure gonna love this book. Next is Final Offer by Lauren Asher. So this is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series by her. This is actually the only book I read. And basically the Dreamland Billionaires, you follow 3 brothers whose grandfather is like a Walt Disney type figure. And when he died, he left each of them a task in the will. And once they complete said task, they will inherit millions or billions even. So this is the 3rd brother, and he has struggled with addictions for like the last 6 years. And around that time, he broke up with the love of his life, and he left her heartbroken. And now he's back because his task is to sell the lake house. But when he gets there, he realizes that his ex has been living there with her daughter, and now he needs to sell it, but she's living there and she doesn't want to sell. So they're basically at odds with that. But she also cannot really afford to buy him out. And he lives in the pool house, I guess, while they are figuring things out. And obviously, for romantic plot reasons, there's something wrong with the actual lake house. So now she and her daughter have to live with him in the tiny pool house for a while. This I really, really loved. And this also has a possessive hero. Like, even though he has issues he has to deal with, and even though in this case he's not that consistent, especially not toward, like, he has his own issues that he needs to deal with, when he gets into his possessive mode, he gets so deliciously possessive. Like, he doesn't really have his life figured out, but what he does know is that he loves her. At the end of the day, he will do anything to win her back, and I just love that. Yeah, this one I actually read for the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. So if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, definitely check out that video. This was a very big surprise for me. Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Johnny. Johnny is just perfect. Even though in this book he's like barely 18, I love him. Like, he's almost the blueprint of what every man should be. Like, I know some 30-year-olds who are more immature than he is. Like, once he knows what he wants, he'll do anything and everything to get that. He's possessive, obsessive, and I just love him. So this is very sad, though, I do have to say. So you follow Shannon and Johnny, and Shannon has really been going through it. She was severely bullied in her last school, and because of that, she gets transferred to Toman University, which is a private college or like private school. And her home life is awful. Like, her father is a very, very, very abusive man. He abuses everybody in the household, including Shannon. And on her first day in Toman University, she gets a rugby ball kicked at her head. And the person who accidentally did that is Johnny. So she has to go to the nurse, and he feels awful. And because of that, he wants to get to know her better. Like, even though he technically does not have time for girls because his dream is to become a professional rugby player and he wants to focus all his attention on that. Like, he has an obsessive personality in general. Like, it used to be just rugby, but now that Shannon has caught his eye, Shannon like the river, he also gets really obsessive with her, and I like the consistency of that character. A lot of things are keeping them apart because her father doesn't want her to date anybody, and obviously there are severe consequences if he finds out that she is dating. And there's also a big difference in social classes here. He's very rich, she's very poor. But like, the way he loves her is just mesmerizing to me. Like, even though technically, like I said, he is just like 18, the way he would do anything and everything to keep her safe, to love her, to protect her, to, you know, it's just amazing. And I love how whenever somebody else looks at her, he makes it clear to everybody in the room that she's his and nobody else's. And I just love that. Like, yes, Johnny. Yeah, I still need to finish this series, by the way. I still need to read Saving and Redeeming 6, but I just know that those books will be even more heartbreaking to me than Binding and Keeping 13, because Joey already has half of my heart. And yeah, that one actually also deals with addictions, but this is beautiful. But keep your tissues ready because you're gonna need them. Moving on to the dark romances. Obviously, dark romances are ripe with these types of heroes, like the guys that are very possessive, like, and the way they make their, like, it's I haven't read those yet, but I know that there are some dark romances where they actually brand the girl. That's how possessive they are. But anyway, moving on. We're going to start with God of Malice by Rena Kent. Almost every single of these books has a possessive hero, but I didn't want to put the whole series in because I want to make this video over and over and over again. So I want to have, like, pretty much every video will have one of these books in. But basically, this is a dark romance, and actually the indie version starts with a scene that is very much non-consensual. But I believe in the tradition, because she recently got picked up by a traditional publisher, I believe they changed that first scene so that it's clear that it's more dubious consent and not non-consent. Moving on. So you follow Glyndon and Killian, and they are part of rivaling schools at this island. One has more American students and one has more British students. One day, Glyndon is on top of this cliff, mourning the loss of her friend who committed suicide. So Killian comes upon her and she accidentally slips and he saves her. Then he tells her that he'll pull her off of the ledge if she promises, like if she returns, like does something in return. And what he wants is a blowjob. So that ends up happening. And then he becomes obsessed with her. Like he stalks her. He's always around whenever she's around. And he wants her. And there's like, whether she wants to or not, basically, it's their romance. This is, first of all, very hot. Second of all, very possessive hero. Like he, once again, if anybody so much as looks at Glyndon, he'll make it known that she's his. Like even her brothers, like he's even possessive of her over her brothers, even though, I mean, those are her brothers. But yeah, he doesn't care. Like the whole world will know that she's his. And if anybody even comes close to her, he'll be there in front of their face telling them that she's his. And I just love that. So yeah, but definitely check your triggers because it has a lot. And this is a psychopath hero, so he doesn't give a fuck. Like he doesn't even care about Glyndon's feelings, honestly, as long as she's his. Next is Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts. So this is the first book in her Wicked Villains series, and the Wicked Villains, basically you follow Disney villains having their HEA. So this is Jasmine and Jafar. And this is a CNC romance, so basically consensual non-consent. You start this story with Jafar killing Jasmine's father and then fucking her. And then you realize that they've been doing that for a while and they have this like CNC relationship going on. She's engaged to be married to Ali, the Aladdin character, and but he's a bad guy. And not that Jafar is a good guy by any means. And this, the whole Wicked Villains takes place around this sex club. And so you meet a lot of like different, I'm just looking. This is a special edition and it has beautiful illustrations. I'm waiting for the other ones to get published. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, so this is a very possessive hero. Like he'll have her and he'll do anything to have her, kill anybody basically to have her. And this was hot. Like Katie Robert knows how to write smutty books, and this is definitely a good version of it. I do know that this is not a lot of people's favorites in the series. I've only read this one, but I'm very much looking forward to the Beauty and the Beast one because that is an MMF with Belle, Gaston, and the Beast, which, say less. I just want to read that, but this is definitely a possessive hero. He'll tell her over and over again that she's his, and anybody else who will hear it, he'll also tell them that she's his. And yeah, let me actually show you an illustration. So I'm moving on to one that is similar to God of Malice, and it's the original Killian. It is Untouchable by Sam Mariano. This is also starts off with very much a non-consensual scene. So you follow Zoe, who reported a guy for sexually assaulting her. Was part of the football team, and because of that, he got kicked off. He got kicked off of the football team, and because she lives in this small town that's very much obsessed with the high school football team, she's become the town pariah. And now, which is awful, by the way, and now she gets cornered into a classroom by that guy that she reported, plus Carter Mahoney, who's like the star quarterback, and another football player. And Carter tells her that she has two options. Either he will actually fuck her or he'll face fuck her, and she at least gets to decide that. So she decides to go for option B, and then she obviously is very traumatized by that. So she calls in sick or from school, and then Carter, who's also like a psychopath, sociopath, whatever, he shows up at her house with soup, charming her mom and, you know, telling her that he's worried about her and stuff like that. Because she was resisting him in ways while she was forced to do what she had to do, he also becomes very obsessed with her. So he ends up also stalking her, shows up wherever she is, and kind of forcing her to be with him. And this is all told in Zoe's point of view, by the way. So eventually she also becomes intrigued by him, and it's their romance. This was very good to me. Like just like Zoe, I just wanted to figure out what was going on with Carter. This also obviously takes place in high school. And this guy, once again, very possessive. Like, he knows what he wants, and it's Zoe, and he'll have her at all costs, first of all. And second of all, nobody else will have her. And if they even so much as think of being with her, he'll let them know nicely or definitely not so nice that she's his. Once again, definitely not for the faint of heart. I think out of all of them, this one is the least disturbing. But this one, which is fascinating to me, and it's definitely one of my favorite books. Yeah, definitely a very possessive hero. Moving on to the fantasy romances. Once again, fantasy romance, also very good subgenre for these possessive heroes. The first one is The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I'm mainly talking about the Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So you follow this. So this is a duology. Well, actually, it's a series of duologies. And the first duology, you follow Rain and Oriah. So Oriah is a human, but she has been adopted by the vampire king in this world. And every 200 years, there is this Hunger Games-like competition where the winner, the only one left alive, can ask their goddess Nyaxia for a favor. So Oriah enters because she wants to be more powerful. And she's the only human in this competition full of vampires. And there she meets a vampire named Rain, and it's basically their romance while they are trying to win this competition. Because of events at the end of this book, their relationship is at a certain place in the second book. I don't want to spoil it, but eventually in that book, he will utter the words, "You're mine," and I just melted because of that. Once again, I cannot really tell you a whole lot about it. I don't want to spoil this book because I was gapped and gooped. By the end of this book, my jaw was on the floor at the end of this book. So yeah, definitely a very possessive hero. He loves Oriah and nobody else, and he'll let her know and everybody else. A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. So this is a Norse-inspired fantasy romance, and you follow Freya, and Freya was married to this guy who didn't treat her the best, and one day their leader, which is called a Jarl, he realizes she has these powers, which makes her a shield maiden, and apparently there's this prophecy that whoever controls the shield maiden will rule the land. So he wants to marry her, even though he already has a wife, so that he can become the most powerful Jarl to rule them all. He also has a very hot son called Bjorn, and she really doesn't have any choice in the matter, so she has to marry him. But of course, she falls in love with the son Bjorn. And I do know, so I read this book, I believe, in April. Yeah, I do know for sure because I was in London when I read this book. I know that he utters the word mine at least once, so therefore he is in this list. So definitely possessive hero. And once again, same with Twisted Games. This is an interesting dynamic because even though he is a possessive hero, he cannot really act on it too much or profess his love for her to the rest of the world, since she's technically married to his father. So he definitely falls into the possessive hero trope. The last fantasy romance is a fan fiction, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised, but it's obviously Manacled by Senlin Yu, which, for those of you who don't know, who've been living under a rock, this is going to get traditionally published, and I cannot wait. So basically, this is a Draco and Hermione fan fiction. It's also Handmaid's Tale inspired, which is ironic considering what happened in the last week. Basically, in this world, Voldemort won, and now all the Muggle-born and half-blood witches get used to become these handmaidens, basically sex slaves for the pure-blood wizarding families, because the pure-bloods cannot really have any babies. So they're using these half-bloods or mudbloods to have their babies, including Hermione. And Hermione gets sent to Draco because he's the High Reeve. He is the top commander in Voldemort's army. This book basically gets told in 3 different parts. The first part is what I just described. The second part is all flashbacks. And the third book is once Hermione. So this deals with amnesia. Once Hermione gets all her memories back, you get them working towards their HEA. This is a romance, even though in the very first part, you cannot believe it because this also has non-consensual scenes, obviously. because he has to rape her. And yeah, he gets very mean at times, but Draco is the most possessive hero of them all. Like, he loves her fiercely, and he will do anything and everything. Like, he would literally burn the entire world if that meant that he could have Hermione. And I love that. Like, he loves her so much, and he's so possessive of her, and he hates her because he loves her so much, and he is so angry with her for depriving them both of happiness in ways. And it's just, I did an entire reading vlog of this book where I cried because this is so heartbreakingly beautiful. If you've not read this book yet, for some reason, I would say definitely do. Or you can wait until the traditionally published book gets published, I guess. I am very interested to see how they're going to change things, because obviously they cannot use like the Harry Potter thing. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to change that. Last but most certainly not least is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. I actually wrote down what he says. He tells her, mine, only mine. And actually what I love about this book is, okay, so basically you follow Farah, and this book actually starts with a flashback of when she was 8, and she meets this boy named Dugan, who's 10, and they are best friends. And even little Dugan is a possessive hero. Like, he tells her that she's his and that nobody will have her. Like, I believe, oh yeah, he calls her Fairy Mine, which I just love that. Stop, that is adorable. So anyway, what happens afterwards is very sad, because she gets almost assaulted by the headmister in the school, so Dugan ends up killing him, and because of that, this 10-year-old boy gets sent to prison, and then 10 years later, he ends up dying in prison, and Farah has been living as his widow for the past 10 years, and now she works for Scotland Yard, and then this notorious criminal named Dorian, the Black Heart of Benmore, shows up, and he's very intrigued by her, and then he ends up kidnapping her. And he tells her that he used to be in prison with Dugan, and he wants to get revenge for everybody that has hurt him in prison. And because of that, he needs to marry her, because he needs funds to do that, and she is set to inherit a fortune, I believe. So they end up married, but he has some very, he's very a scarred hero and a tortured hero, because he was also a little boy in prison, and basically anything you can think of that is horrible for a boy to experience in prison, he has experienced. So he cannot really stand the touch of human skin. So once they have sex, she needs to be restrained, because he doesn't want her to touch him. And this is so good. And he's very much a possessive hero. Dorian may or may not be Dugan. Let's just leave it at that. And it's just beautiful. This is one of my favorite books I read this year. I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And if nothing else, just read it, because this hero is so deliciously possessive. So these are all my recommendations for possessive heroes. I have definitely more possessive heroes to recommend you. So if you want a part 2 of this recommendations video, let me know and I'll definitely do it for you. And if you have any recommendations for me or the rest of us for possessive heroes, or heroes that just love to say, you're mine, or she's mine, or he's mine, leave all those in the comments below, because I just want to read about some possessive heroes and just do some law of attraction shit to manifest that into my life. Well, I mean, not the dark romance, guys, please. I have no interest in that, but I just like a guy who knows what he wants, and that is me. Moving on. Leave all your recommendations in the comments below. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.